records. No bullshit. Progressive, heavy psych band out of the Pacific Northwest. The Surprise Package and their LP Free Up, released on Lee Hazelwood Industries, 1969, I believe. Absolutely killer. Original pressing. Highly recommended. Prince Teddy was a record producer, songwriter, worked for Capitol Records. He wanted to throw a band together, so he did. The result was Sweet Murry, again 1969. This was released on a label called Yardbird. They had a regional hit in Hawaii with a song called Remember Mary. Features a guy named Willie Bims on drums, who was the drummer for Boyce and Hart and played drums on many Monkees recordings. Really cool. Melodic rocker, psychedelic undertones. Original Sweet Murry 1. From 1977 on the Spiegelei label, German progressive jazz folk band Holderlin and their LP Rare Birds. Really nice LP. Original German pressing. US original on Decca, The Hobbits, Down to Middle Earth. Sort of a psych folk group. Really good. You know, like many of these psych records, there's one clunker on the middle of side 1, but aside from that, excellent, enjoyable. If you like stuff like Thorin Shield and things like that, you'd dig this. The Hobbits, Down to Middle Earth. Pulled out some Lonnie Liston Smith that I wanted to listen to. Thought I'd show it. Reflections of a Golden Dream. This is, I want to say from 75 or 76. A little bit later than his primo stuff in his catalog. Starting to get a little disco-y, but still very much enjoyable. Jazz, funk, disco, keyboard-driven stuff. Lonnie Liston Smith, Reflections of a Golden Dream. I was in the mood to listen to some rock and soul, so I pulled out my copy of Fat from 1970 on RCA. These guys are similar to like groups like Black Pearl, you know, good rock and roll, sort of a soulful element to it. Not really psychedelic, but good, straightforward rock from 1970, Fat on RCA. Sometimes you want to zone out, right? So I pulled out my copy of Michael Stern's Ancient Leaves. This is on Continuum Montage from 1977. Really nice, ambient, new agey, record called Ancient Leaves, electronic as well as some acoustic instrumentation. Really, really good. 2 side-long tracks from Michael Stern's Ancient Leaves. This thing's been on heavy rotation lately. This is an original UK pressing of Kevin Ayers' first LP, Joy of a Toy, on Harvest. I just absolutely love this record. Girl on a Swing, Song for Insane Times, which features most of Soft Machine. Robert Wyatt plays drums on most of this record. Really, really good. Joy of a Toy, original UK pressing. There's times when I just can't get enough of this record. This is the first record from Manfred Mann's Chapter 3. Just a really fantastic blend of progressive music, jazz, rock. Fantastic. This is an American first pressing. So good. Here's an interesting American band from the late 60s. I believe this is the only LP they ever put out. The group's called The Travel Agency. Pretty much sort of straightforward late 60s rock. Again, some slight psychedelic undertones, but really good. Again, their only LP. This was reissued, or excuse me, this was issued on a label called Viva. This is an original pressing. Really good. Definitely recommended for those of you that like, you know, the less traveled roads of American rock and roll. This is an original Italian pressing of the first LP from Premiata Forneria Marconi, entitled Storia di un minuto, story of a minute or story in a minute, on the Numero Uno label. I'm not a big fan of PFM's later stuff. I don't really dig sort of the symphonic rock stuff, but this one is much more rock oriented, still with a lot of great progressive modes throughout. Again, original Italian pressing of the first LP from PFM, Premiata Forneria Marconi. Let's see here. Huge fan of the Italian soundtrack composer Stelvio Cipriani. This is a recent reissue on Four Flies of a soundtrack for a horror film he did entitled Un'ombra nell'ombra. I'm sure ombra has something to do with shadow or something like that. As you can see from the cover, the American title was Ring of Darkness. Excellent soundtrack. Again, composed by Stelvio Cipriani, but like his soundtrack to Solamente Nero, the tracks themselves, the instrumentation, was performed by none other than Goblin. If you like Goblin, if you like Italian horror soundtracks, if you like Stelvio Cipriani, this is a must-have. So just recently, I've had my copy of Can Flow Motion on high rotation. For whatever reason of my Can stuff, wanted to listen to this one. This is an original German pressing of this from 76, I believe. This is an up and down affair, in my opinion. There's some killer tracks, but there's also some stuff that doesn't do much for me. But again, gotta have it. Flow Motion from Can. This is an American original on Probe of the Litter and their LP Emerge. Fantastic heavy psych rocker from 69 maybe. I don't remember off the top of my head. But just a killer LP if you dig this kind of stuff. Probably my favorite record from the Litter. Emerge on Probe. Had a little hankering for some Wendy Carlos, so I pulled out my copy of the soundtrack to Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. I love the original tracks that Wendy Carlos composed for this soundtrack film. That opening scene when they're driving through the mountains to the Overlook Hotel, and that pulsing track is coming on. Yeah, I didn't even bother to listen to side 2, although side 2 is cool too. I just really wanted to hear the Wendy Carlos tracks from this, so I was spinning this recently. Original American pressing of The Shining. So this is probably my favorite record right now. This is an Italian progressive rock band called Sensations Fix. This is their first LP, Portable Madness. This is an original Italian pressing on Polydor from 1974. This band is freaking awesome. If you've never heard Sensations Fix before, I highly recommend that you check them out. Again, as I mentioned, Italian progressive, however, much more in the vein of German cosmic music. Very little in the way of vocals. Rich but minimal instrumentation. I can't stop spinning this thing. This is absolutely fabulous. Portable Madness, Italian original pressing, first LP from Sensations Fix, who, as a side note, in 1974 released no less than 3 LPs. This is a German hard rocker from 1972. The band is called Night Sun. Their only LP that they released, entitled Mornin'. Absolutely excellent. Hard rocker. Guitar driven, organ driven. At times, little resembling Deep Purple, but with a sound of their own. This is not an original. Original came out in 72 on a label called Zebra. This is a repressing from 1976, German repress on Polydor. Still not a cheap record by any means. And I just have to add that somehow the record store let this thing slip through their cracks. I don't know how. Absolutely mint copy of this. I got it for $2.99, so somebody screwed up somewhere, but this is killer. Next two records kind of went on a John Gustafson kick. John Gustafson's a guy that doesn't get a lot of word of mouth, but he was involved in some killer stuff. So this is a progressive English band called Quatermass. Released this one album on Harvest. This is an American original pressing of this. Really, really cool. Keyboard, bass, and drums only. John Gustafson's the guy in the middle, plays bass, sings. If you like good English progressive rock, this is highly recommended. Quatermass. John Gustafson also was in the English hard rock band Hard Stuff. So I pulled this out, was given this a spin as well. This is their first LP entitled Bulletproof. This is a UK original from 1972. Really, really good. Highly recommended. Hard Stuff and their LP Bulletproof. I think they only put out one other LP after this called Bolex Dementia, something like that. Hard Stuff, Bulletproof, again featuring John Gustafson, who would then go on actually to play bass with Roxy Music for a few of their records in the mid-70s. So John Gustafson, interesting guy, been in some good bands, deserves some praise, I think. This is a band called Glass Prism, American psych band. This is not an expensive record or anything like that, but I really, really like it. Through the Poe, through the Glass Prism, so they composed a bunch of original music and then just used the poems of Edgar Allan Poe for their lyrics or whatever. So this sort of like meets a crossroads of a lot of things that I like. Obviously, psych rock is great, but I'm also a huge, huge fan of Edgar Allan Poe. Glass Prism, Poe Through the Looking Glass. This is an Austrian progressive rock band from the 70s named Eel the Craig. From what I gather, nobody knows exactly what the hell their name means or where it comes from. This is their LP from 1978 entitled Hats of Glass on Vertigo. Really, really good. This is an original German pressing of this LP. Last thing I'm going to show is another German original pressing of Sweet Smoke's Just a Poke. So this is sort of a hippie commune jam band from the late 60s, early 70s. A couple of brothers, some guys from New York, moved to Germany, lived in a commune, cranked out these. They put out 3 records. This is the first of them. Each side, one long track. Really good. Elements of rock and jazz. Sweet Smoke, Just a Poke. Recommended. All records, no bullshit.